Good morning, good morning, good morning. Wow, this is Dr. Herbert Harris, and this is a great day for living, sharing, being alive. And I want to thank each and every one of you for being on this call this morning, because this is Millionaire Mentorship call number 208. I think that gives us 4 years of calls. Wow. 4 years we've been doing this. That's amazing. And you know, each day, each time we do our calls, our topics evolve based on where we are and what we're doing. And many times the topics that we deal with are the ones that we're dealing with. And so at this point in the year, this point in our success journey, I think that most of us have experienced something called disappointment. And so that is our topic for today, handling disappointment. Very often, you know, we think disappointment is really a part of life. It's really a part of our success journey that pushes us to do better, to be better. Sometimes disappointment is almost a test of how badly we want it. Do we really want to be successful? Do we really want to graduate? Do we really want to get that promotion? Do we really want a new relationship? Do we really want a better relationship? And disappointment can be that barometer that tells us exactly what we need to do. So, if we think about that, then what is disappointment? Disappointment, from the definition, is a state of failing to satisfy your hopes or expectations. Disappointment means leaving unsatisfied, frustrated. Disappointment is an emotion, and like every emotion, you know, the positive emotions that we have, the negative emotions that we have, each emotion is like a seed, and being a seed, it grows just as our positive emotions grow, our negative emotions grow, and disappointment is a negative emotion which is like a seed which can grow if we feed it. If we feed it. There's a story, I think it's a Cherokee Indian story, and the grandfather's telling his young son, he says that in each of us there are 2 wolves, and one wolf is like an angry wolf that wants to kill and consume, and the other wolf is a kind wolf, a friendly wolf that wants to nurture and comfort and love. And so the young man says to his grandfather, he says, well, which wolf prevails? Which wolf runs our lives? And he says, the wolf that you feed. And so disappointment can be a wolf, and the way we feed it can determine how it impacts our lives. And so when we have a disappointment, we can validate it. You know, sometimes when things don't work out, we have that seed of disappointment. We validate it by wallowing in it, by comparing it, by just thinking of, oh man, this is terrible. How could this happen to me? What did I do? Well, when we do that, we're feeding it, and that then leads to discouragement. And so think about this, folks. What is discouragement? Discouragement says, definition says, a loss of confidence, a loss of enthusiasm, even to the point of preventing you from taking action in the future. So if disappointment comes into our lives, which it surely will, if we don't handle it properly, it can lead to discouragement, that loss of confidence, that loss of enthusiasm, which can then lead to devastation. And devastation is that total destruction and damage. This process is under our control and is controlled by our choices and our actions. So when things don't work out, when there's disappointment, that negative mind in us can say, oh, maybe I wasn't cut out for this. Oh, I'm not into this sales stuff. I'm not good at business. I need to get a job. Sometimes that disappointment will, in a relationship, oh, I'll never do this again. Oh, this person does not love me. On your job, you didn't get the promotion, and so you're disappointed. And if we feed that disappointment with negativity, it grows into discouragement. I'll never do another business again. I'll never get into another relationship again. I'm going to quit this job and get another one where people really appreciate me. And if you let that continue, it can go to that point of devastation where you become totally captive to the weeds of your life. And these weeds eventually just starve out and kill the flowers, the good people, the good things. And so devastation makes you throw in the towel and quit. Discouragement sets you up to throw in the towel. But disappointment is the doorway. We can choose now to handle disappointment in a way that it can be effective. Life is all about positive and negatives, the yin and yang. And so that when disappointments come into our lives, if we handle them properly, they can inspire us to change. They can inspire us to do better. Sometimes, though, when the disappointment happens, it may not feel that way. It may not feel that good. But trust me, if we go through it, if we face it, if we grow through it, disappointment can lead us to perfection. Disappointment can lead us to what I might call the big you, the big stuff, the things that can take you to a whole nother level. I'm thinking back of a family member once. We were at a graduation dinner, and his daughter said, Dad, you never have anything good to me. It seemed like she was very disappointed at she felt that she had graduated and it was a great success, and that, everybody should be just honoring her, and most of all, her father should just be saying good and positive things to her, good job well done, we're proud of you. And he wasn't. He was just being as he always was. And she says, Dad, you never really show that you're proud of me, that you love me, that you believe in me. And he says, what? He says, I've spent $500,000 sending you to private schools and to private colleges. That shows you how much I love you. And I guarantee you that many of us on this call today have been in those situations where people we care about demonstrate their love for us based on the amount of money they give us, the possessions that they give us. And it's very interesting. He really believed that was complete, that the fact that he had invested so much money in her education, that it really, she should be grateful. But it leads us to that point that disappointment comes about when people's expectations are not met. In other words, she was expecting one thing because she felt that she had done a good job, and the father was expecting another thing because he felt that his money had spoken for us. I know a lot of people like that are very disappointed when you don't seem to respond to the things that they've done for you. And if you notice, they remind you of those things all the time. Oh, let me tell you, I've had some friends that if they ever do you a favor, they will remind you of that favor forever and ever. And it's because they are really inside disappointed that you have not responded to them doing that favor in the way that they thought you should. Another friend once bought his wife a mink coat, and I mean, he laid it on, and he just thought that this was it, and it was going to bring about, you know, an incredible evening, shall we say. And she thanked him and just sort of didn't really respond in the way he thought she should, and he was very angry. He said, well, I'll take this coat back. And she said, take it. And it was on from that point on. So what happened? His expectation was that that material possession would create a special relationship with his wife for him, that because he had given this material thing, that she would love him more, she would show her love more. And her expectation was she just wanted some attention. She just wanted some affection, some tenderness. And so this whole experience of life, we often go through things with these expectations and these disappointments, and they can either tear us down or build us up. So let's look at this, since we can see that this disappointment is the gateway to either growth or destruction. So let's look at some of the types of disappointment. I think one of the first types of disappointment is disappointment in other people, that other people don't perform up to the level of your expectations. The husband, because of the mink coat he'd given her, his expectations that she would do A, B, C, and D. But the wife, because of her expectations, she just wanted to be loved, to be paid attention to be listened to. She did E, F, and G. And so the end result was both people were upset and unfulfilled. So disappointment in other people's responses. But one of the things that we have to learn, one of the lessons that we learn from handling disappointment is you cannot let your life depend on other people's expectations. When you live your life expecting other people's desires to conform with your expectations, you're setting yourself up for failure. So disappointment in the way other people perform. Very often in network marketing and in business in general, where you require teamwork and where you require people to get together, you're very often disappointed because of the level of performance of your team members. And I've seen people get so discouraged because their team members are not doing what they feel their team members should be doing. Those expectations do not match up. In other words, you're disappointed in the level of another person's performance. But once again, that's a setup for failure, because your expectations and the person's expectations may be completely different. Sometimes in business, we want to make a promotion. We want to create more income, and we want all of our team members to create $1,000 in income every month. And then we are disappointed when they don't do it. But our team members, their goal was to create a couple hundred. All they were doing this business for was they just wanted to make $200 or $300 a month to make their budget work out. They weren't trying to make thousands. They weren't trying to make millions. And so that disappointment then is designed as to teach you that you can't live your life based on other people's expectations. Sometimes we get disappointed in how other people feel about us. As with the husband in the mink coat, we, based on our projections, based on our expectations, want another person to feel that we love them. We want our job to feel that we're doing a good job. We want our business associates to feel that we're great leaders. But then when they don't feel that way, when they don't follow us and they don't demonstrate that we're great leaders, we feel disappointed. So we can be disappointed in other people's feelings about us. Lesson: you can't control how other people feel about you, but you can control how you respond to it. And so sometimes when things like that happens, it indicates you have to change your own expectations. You are the one that's out of step. Sometimes we get disappointment from the world mind. And that can lock us in too. You know, disappointment that the world does not open the door for you the way you think it should. You know, one of the things that concerns me about young people now in sports, you know, there's this drive to give everybody a trophy. We're all winners. Everybody wins. But life is not like that. And so when young people go out into the world and they experience defeat, they don't know how to handle it. And so discouragement can be a way to teach you how to handle defeat so that when it happens, you can grow through it to the next level. And then finally, that disappointment that is probably most devastating is when you're disappointed in yourself. When you set unrealistic expectations for yourself. We do it in business all the time. We want to create a certain level of income, a certain level of activity, and we commit to a certain activity level that we cannot maintain or sustain. I'm going to make 50 calls a day, and we make 5. I'm going to do 20 presentations a week, and we do 2. And then we're disappointed in ourselves, but we set ourselves up for that failure. Sometimes in relationships, you know, we may be disappointed in ourselves that the relationship didn't work out because it was our fault. And we start blaming ourselves when maybe the other person in that relationship has so much baggage. You know, some people may be too hurt to help. And you can get into a relationship like that where to help that other person is way above your pay grade. But yet, you become disappointed in yourself and feel inadequate, that you're not good enough, that you're not smart enough, that you're not sensitive enough. Disappointment in yourself can be such a cancer that it can truly lead to discouragement and devastation. So now that we've painted this picture of disappointment and devastation and you might say the negative side, then how do we get out of this? What do we do to take ourselves to handle and overcome disappointment? There are 5 keys. Number 1, you have to acknowledge how you feel about the situation. In other words, when you experience a disappointment, you have to face it. You have to say, you know, let me see how I really feel about this. And I'm disappointed. But sometimes things just don't work out the way we want them to. And how do you handle that? Well, if you don't acknowledge it, you may start blaming other people. Sometimes when you have a disappointment, you blame other people. You go into denial. You start making excuses. But as long as we do that, we will never grow through the disappointment to the other side, to the good side. Anytime we experience disappointment, the message is to grow through it, meaning we have to learn from it so that we don't experience it again. So we ask ourselves some of these questions. You know, in other words, what really happened here? Why am I so disappointed? Hiding that disappointment will prevent me from moving on. What really happened here? How did this result come about? Sometimes in a job environment, I've seen people very disappointed that they didn't get a promotion. And I mean, they're devastated. Many times they were counting on that promotion so much that they'd already spending the money that they were anticipating getting a raise. But when you begin to really look at it, you say, well, you know, let me clarify my feelings about that. I didn't get the raise. I was expecting the raise. And why am I feeling disappointed about it? Because I had projected my whole life based on that anticipation, that anticipated result, which did not come. And so we then have to start to analyze that. You know, well, what was I thinking when this thing didn't pan out as I had anticipated? Yeah. Maybe I'm blaming myself. Maybe I'm blaming others. I didn't get the promotion because my boss doesn't like me, because I'm tall, I'm short, for whatever reason. But I think once you start to analyze it and step back from it and saying, what's really going on here? Let me look at what I've really been doing. I've been just barely getting here at 9 o'clock to punch in at 9 exactly. I've been walking out the door at 5 o'clock, not a second later. And during the day, I've been doing just enough to not get fired. That's what the boss is seeing. But I'm seeing, I need this promotion, I need this extra money. And so now when that disappointment comes about, we can get stuck in it, or we can face up to it and say, okay, I see now what has happened. I acknowledge this situation. I can grow through it. I need to change. Even in relationships, sometimes we get very, very disappointed with our partner, with our significant other. But when we back up and we acknowledge that situation, you say, maybe I just wasn't listening. Maybe I was the cause of it. But the key is to acknowledge how you really feel about the situation. The second key is to question your expectations. You have to take a closer look at your expectations, because if you're getting these results and they're not the ones that you wanted, then what led you to these results? What were my expectations about these circumstances? It may be that my expectations set me up for disappointment. It may be that my expectations were of other people and that their expectations were different. And so I'm expecting something that they were not prepared to give. So we have to really look at that and say to ourselves, well, what were my expectations about myself, about the other people involved? That maybe my expectations and their expectations were quite different. And we need to talk this thing through. Step 3. We have to learn from our experiences. And when I say learn, whenever we have disappointment, it's very important sometimes to be patient with yourself. Don't immediately start beating yourself on the head about what you didn't do and what you couldn't do and what you were not capable of. But step back for a moment and just take a deep breath. And ask yourself, well, what can I learn from this experience? When things didn't work out, there's a tendency to react rather than be proactive. To find the root cause, sometimes you have to step back, take a deep breath before you can fix it. I expected a raise, I didn't get a raise. I expected the promotion, I didn't get it. What can I learn from this? Maybe I learned that my concept of success and my boss's concept weren't the same. Maybe if I get a clearer picture of his expectations, then I can be prepared for the next time around. See, that's the whole idea of disappointment, is that when you take the time to learn from it, then when the situation comes up again, number one, you won't be disappointed in the same way because you will have learned from the previous disappointments. Maybe in a relationship, maybe I need to listen more. Maybe I need to listen to my significant other, my spouse, my friends, so that I can get a better idea of what's important to them, what's important to him, what's important to her. We have to take the time to say, what can I learn about myself? When you had that last disappointment, especially when other people are the cause of it, when you feel that another person has not treated you the way that you think they should, you have to look at yourself and say, well, maybe I'm expecting too much out of this person. Maybe I'm basing how I feel about myself on how I think they feel about me. Maybe I'm looking for them to like me, and maybe I'm thinking if they like me, I like me. So maybe the problem is not my person, the other person, it's me. I'm trying to confirm that I like me when I should, by other people's responses, when I should like me, period. Wow. You know, sometimes those of us who are in business for ourselves, we have a perspective that everybody on our team wants for success, but that's not true. Everybody may want success, but their definition of success is different. Everybody may want to be loved, but their definition of success is different, of love is different. And so disappointment now can compel you to look behind the veil and see what's really true. Step 4. When we have disappointments, that's a signal we need to take a personal inventory. You see, when we need to sit down and we need to write out our vision again. Sometimes we get disappointed because we got off track. We lost the path. We get disappointed because we got distracted. So we sit down and write out our vision again and look at who we are and where we are. What skills do I have that can help me, make the most of this situation? So when we start doing that assessment, when we're disappointed, and for example, in a business environment, what skills do I have that can help me get through this? Maybe I need to develop a new skill. Maybe I need to enhance a skill. What do I need to improve? Maybe it's my self-image. But once we start taking that personal inventory, what knowledge do I have that may be useful now? What tools do I have at my disposal that may be useful? Many times when we encounter disappointments, one of our most powerful tools is patience. Another most powerful tool is persistence. Another powerful tool is relationship. When we get disappointed, sometimes we just need a shoulder to cry on. And maybe just to tell, to share. And just that will help lift us up and move us to the next level. Once we have studied the problem, once we have analyzed our inventory, once we've looked at ourselves to see what we have to do, like we say, a checkup from the neck up, maybe our thinking, a checkup from the heart down, maybe how we feel about ourselves is setting us up for these disappointments. But that then leads us to that 5th step, is to modify our objectives and our expectations. If we constantly experience disappointment in other people, it's us. We may be choosing the wrong flock to hang with. We may be choosing other people who just can't deliver what we feel we need. We may not be clear on what we need. And so we modify those expectations and those objectives, because once we do that, then we can be sure that we are, you might say, grounded. It's very hard to meet a moving target. And so in our success journey, until we really figure out who we are, we'll experience disappointments, because the disappointments come about often when what we're expecting and what the world expects and what other people are expecting are out of cycle. And so as a result, we're disappointed, discouraged, and even devastated. And so to conclude and to wrap everything up today, how do we handle disappointment? We take this 5-step approach. We stick with it, we work on it, and we know it's in our hands. 1, we acknowledge how we feel about it. We don't make excuses. We stay away from denial. We're very honest and truthful with ourselves. Number 2, we question our expectations. Our expectations can be setting us up for failure and disappointment. So that our expectations of ourselves and our expectations of others are harmonic. And then we can bloom and blossom. We take the time to learn from this experience. We have the patience with ourselves. We don't react to the disappointment. We step back from the disappointment so that it can sink in, so that we can understand it on every level. And then step 4, to take that personal inventory. Because this is the core. That if we experience disappointment after disappointment, we really have to take that personal inventory and re-examine our goals, re-examine our plans, re-examine our self-image, re-examine our attitude, re-examine our communication skills, re-examine everything about ourselves, because something may be out of harmony. And that the disappointment was just a key to make us look below the surface. And then finally, that's step 5. That once we've done that, to modify our expectations, to modify our objectives, to become clearer about who we are, about what we are about, and about where we're going. To become more realistic about our own expectations for ourselves and for other people. To become more realistic about our expectations of the world and of our own self. And when we can do these things, when we can take stock of where we're going and what's happened, when we can address every disappointment as a life lesson in learning, then we can truly give ourselves a push along the path and use each disappointment as a setup for a comeback, knowing that each disappointment will make us stronger, each disappointment will make us clearer, and each disappointment will give us life lessons to lead us on to our goals. And so it is when we can do that, we know that the best is yet to come. And so it is.